What's going on, everyone? Mario with Beyond Fitness here, and today I'm going to release one of the informative videos since I've actually gotten some requests on them, and something that many people, if they've worked with me in the past or if they've worked with me during an off-season gaining phase, is that I incorporate refeeds in the off-season, just like majority of other coaches probably do as well. However, I'm going to give you guys my take on how I do them and why I do them, how often, when often, etc. So as you can see on the screen, it says off-season refeed. That is what we're going to be discussing right today. And one of them is usually, if you see the golden or that little question on the bottom left, this is typically what I tend to get when people ask me, why do you incorporate refeeds? Well, if you're already in a surplus, in a 250 calorie, 500 calorie surplus, you're already making gains. There's no need for a refeed. And I understand that. That's great. However, you have to look at it from the long-term perspective. And if you're ever competing, you're training, you're going to be in bodybuilding or something of this nature that requires this much attention to your nutrition, then you better be looking at this from the long-term perspective. And I answer that question directly on the right. And I want to experiment with the people that I'm working with, experiment and test to see how high their weight jumps before, let's say that there's too much water retention and we're not hitting a new low, or we're not hitting back to our moderate weight that we were at the beginning of the week. And also, with these big refeeds, we're experimenting to see how high can we get a refeed up to before we start dieting back down again. And by this, I mean, how high can we get someone's refeed? Let's say we can get someone's refeed up to 700 grams. Sweet. So when they start dieting, I would like to see them have that one big day at 700 grams of carbs, and then they go back to their moderate low days. And this is beneficial because typically most people, when they give a refeed to, let's say, one of their clients, they just kind of have a random number. Maybe it's like an estimated number that they kind of want to keep it low just to make sure, because they haven't had a chance to really experiment with someone's metabolism yet. They haven't had a chance to see how high they can push a refeed. So that's why you see guys that only have refeeds that only go up like 100 grams of carbs, and it's just something so minimal because they haven't had a chance to. But when you actually start experimenting and testing with someone's metabolism, you can start really seeing how high can you push a refeed up to before you start noticing any sort of like weight gain. And I'm going to be right back in a minute because I'm going to write down pretty much an example of someone's weight and when I would call the cutoff for a refeed. Alright everyone, so as you can see, we are back. Hopefully the writing is not too sloppy, so I'm going to show you guys an example of at least something, maybe I could coin it for once, maybe a progressive refeed if you want to call it that. Whereas you can see in week 1, so focus on week 1, here we have our guy at 175 pounds beginning of the week. And of course, I only put those decimals like 175.2, 175.4 to kind of make up for the fact that assume fluctuations. Weight is never linear, and neither are fluctuations. Some days you could literally wake up weighing 175 pounds, and then the next day you'll wake up weighing 176. And it could be a shift in water balance. It could be the fact that maybe you went out to a dinner with your family and you ended up having some hardcore sodium-rich meal. And it could have been the fact that you maybe even ate later at night. Whatever the reason is, I just put that number in there to account for possible variables and weight fluctuations. And then we hit back to our normal low at 175 on the dot. And this is the day that we would assume a quote-unquote refeed day, where I would have my person or my client consume 600 grams of carbs, and then we would take notes. So the following day, you see right there, it's, let's say his weight jumped up 100 to 176.2, so a net gain of 1.2 pounds. But many people would assume, oh, you're getting fat as fuck. And no, it's mostly just water retention from increased carb intake. And again, I kind of like to have a refeed in the off season to account for, hey, who knows if you ever go out to, let's say one of your friends' family's birthdays, you go out to dinner, and it's kind of the same thing as in dieting. You have one day of the week where, assuming you're going to hang out with your friends and family, go out to dinner, your cheat meal or your refeed, this takes the same account for it. And then likewise, as you can see in that 176.2, sorry, trying to use my finger here, your weight dropped back down to 175.4. So that was a successful refeed. You were able to successfully drop the weight, or at least the water retention, to some extent. And then we know that, okay, you may either maintain that 175.4 or you may even drop. So in this case, I had it to where the individual, let's say, hit back his normal weigh-in 2 days post refeed. And for me, 2 days post refeed is a successful refeed. He was able to maintain his weight. And next time I figure, just to experiment, let's bump it up 50 grams of carbs and see, how you respond next week. So week 2, everything's looking the same. Everything's going great. As you can see, it's the same weight trend that we noticed on the week 1, except on that refeed day, we're gonna shoot for 650 grams of carbs. And lo and behold, if you've ever asked anybody I've ever worked with, or anybody that maybe other coaches have worked with as well, you can find out that, hey, they have refeeds in the off season too. And also, if you look at his weight, we started at 175, had a refeed of 650, and it went to 176.2. And if you actually notice, the weight from the first week and the second week are exactly alike. So that is a successful refeed, and you could either maintain that for one more week and just see that maybe it's another solid, successful refeed, or you could even bump it up, maybe even if you want to be kind of cautious on it now that you're tapping into the higher carb intake side, you could even bump it to 675 then 700 and make slow strides. And again, you could say it was a successful refeed, and this person was able to bump their refeed up 50 grams just by experimentation and taking notes. And that is it. Right now I'm going to show you guys an example of a bad refeed and when you should really cut it off. Alright, so likewise, here's an example of a bad refeed and when you should really put a cap on it. And this is how you know that you need less carbs. So in this example, we started off with the same 175.0, and then on our given refeed day, we shot up to 1,050 grams of carbs. And what happened is that we shot up essentially 6 pounds, so 6.2 pounds. And now it's not that it's necessarily a bad thing, it's just now we have to wait for your weight to drop and pretty much hit that 175 threshold again before we continue with the refeed. So leading into next week, if we realize that, oh shit, we're spending too many days waiting for your weight to drop, then it's kind of a cue that you should just drop your refeed, maybe 100 grams of carbs, so you could drop it down to 950, see how you respond there, and then slowly just take notes. And that's really all there is to it. And this is literally how I like to plan out refeeds for my clients. I like to make sure and even have them just see how high they can really go before we hit that threshold. And if they wake up the next day feeling, a refeed to me isn't like forcefully cramming food down your face. However, for some people it may be. But it shouldn't be to where the point you're shoving food down your face, you're bloated, you can't even move, you're water, you're spilling over. And for those of you guys who don't know, I actually did a 1,000 gram refeed, and I shot up in weight 4.2 pounds. And the following day after, I dropped 2 pounds. So if I drop another pound or 2 pounds after today, then that will have been a successful refeed, and I might even bump my typical refeed from 600 to 800. So hopefully this has helped you guys kind of gauge where your refeed should be at. And check out, if you enjoyed this video, if this video is informative, please comment, like, subscribe, all that fun YouTube shit. I'm going to be linking other people's YouTube channels, and shout out to Joshua Poyer for actually giving me a shout out, which was extremely, I'm gracious for that. Anybody that can help anybody out in this community, I am extremely grateful for that. Shout out to Tyler Mayer as well for also being a very successful prep coach and good friend of mine, and actually even opening up my mind to some of his ideas as well, which have been extremely helpful to others and even myself. So again, comment, like, subscribe. Check out, if you have any video suggestions on how I do things, feel free to comment or message me personally. Thank you guys, and take care.